All right, so we're here with Fletch from All Things Overlanding, and he's part of the storyteller group of people here. So All Things Overlanding is a YouTube channel, so tell me a little bit about your channel.
Sure. I am a big Nissan guy, so a lot of my content is, centered on Nissan trucks, modifications, do-it-yourself, budget-minded type stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a father of two, so I've got kids, I've got other responsibilities, so I'm mostly a weekend warrior.
Okay.
So I talk a lot about, how to get out and take advantage of those times when you get a night or two nights. You can go to your local national forest. So a lot of that sort of stuff, like budget-minded, like if you're not full-time into it, you don't want to spend millions and millions of dollars on this hobby, so sometimes it makes sense to fabricate your own unistrut roof rack instead of spending $1,000, $1,500 on one. So,
yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so your channel is awesome. You have a whole ton of different gear. Like you are
big gear person.
Big gear person.
Yeah.
Why? What kind of made you think of going that route with your channel and looking at all that gear?
Well, so a lot of it ties into that same thing, right? Like being a dad and a full-time employed person with a job, like unfortunately I can't get out as much as I would like to. So a lot of the times I'm on Amazon maybe at night, or I'm on different gear sites, and I'm like, what would make that next trip really good is if I had this or that. And so I just have always accumulated gear, and I've always been into camping and off-roading and that sort of thing anyways.
Okay.
So it kind of lent itself to that a little bit. And then the more that I started to look at it, the more I started to buy. And now that was part of where the YouTube channel came from, was I was like, okay, I've bought 18 different lanterns and like 4 different fridges, and like I'm wasting so much money. I'm supposed to be cheap, but I'm wasting so much money that I'm actually spending more than if I would have bought better stuff the first time.
Right.
But I could share that experience with people. Like I'm not trying to be an expert at anything. I'm just a regular Joe that actually buys stuff and uses it, and then I try and pass on information to help people out. Right?
Yeah, so they don't make the same mistake of buying all the different stuff.
Yep,
okay.
Exactly.
So what has been almost like your favorite piece of gear that is not, your typical, like it's a rooftop tent or this and that, just like a small gear that, maybe not a lot of people have or think about?
That's a good question. I mean, really, I would say probably one of my favorite things. I spent about $180 on it, but it's just a little 300 watt hour portable power pack.
Okay.
But like the fact that it's small, has a good form factor, it's easy to move around and take, it fits in my backpack. I usually just keep it in my backpack, but then like I will climb up into my tent, charge all my electronics off of it all night, run little lights and stuff off of it. It was really inexpensive, but I've had it for like 3 years now, and I use it all the time. I use it at home sometimes. Like we'll go out on the back deck and I'll plug stuff into it. So it's just nice to have. You don't have to spend $1 million, but there's little stuff that, like, the way I like to look at it is, if you have a problem, how do I solve that problem?
Right.
The best way for the least amount of money. That's kind of my approach, right?
Okay.
Like the less money I can spend that still solves the problem, makes things better. That's what I want to do, and that's one of those things.
Awesome.
For sure.
So for somebody as like yourself, a weekend warrior kind of a person, what advice would you give somebody that is looking to just get started in this industry?
Yeah, well, actually, I see that question a ton on like the online forums and things like that. And when I started, I got super psyched on gear, as you know. Super psyched on gear, started buying stuff. I had modifications for my Xterra, my old truck, before I even bought the truck. Like I just started, I was like, I'm getting a second gen Xterra. I bought the lift, I bought tires. Like I knew what I was gonna do when I found one.
Before I
even had the truck, I was buying stuff. And then once I started to go camping, before I ever went on the first trip, I was like, I have to have this, I have to have that.
Yeah.
And so my advice would be not to get tied down into that.
Right.
Literally just take your vehicle stock and go out and hit some gravel roads. Like you don't have to go to Moab, you don't have to go, most of us don't have access to that. Like I'm in Indiana, so I just have gravel roads, but like I took my wife's Pilot not too long ago, bone stock Honda Pilot, and went out and had a great trip with my 8-year-old. It was awesome. Didn't need a ton of gear, so don't go start buying stuff before you start. Just get out, and then you'll see the holes in your setup. That's when you'll know, okay, this would make that problem-solving piece, right? Like this is the problem. How do I solve it?
Yeah. So you don't know what you need until you actually go out and start doing things.
Right. And then you can prioritize too. Like that's part of it, is like, do you need a $200 trash bag? Maybe, maybe not.
Right.
But is that a big problem for you? Do you have to take your trash out and you need something super fancy? Probably not. But yeah, you'll figure it out.
I would say kind of building out your own rig is fun. It is always nice to kind of like, it'd be cool to get this bumper. I'm gonna make it look like this, have these lights on here.
Yep.
But definitely kind of slowing down and be like, okay, wait, what do I actually need? Because you might go out there, blow your whole budget, and you're like, oh, I actually need this, but I don't have enough money for it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, oh, exactly. Yeah, and it's, that's the thing too, is when I say for the least amount of money, you got to be smart about it. You need to read the reviews and things like that because, again, that's why I've wasted so much money is I literally went, that thing is $7 cheaper than the other. It doesn't have very many reviews. I'm just going to chance it. And then that thing's junk. And the next thing's junk. And then you bought 7 or 8 flashlights.
Yeah.
And you've wasted so much money. You should have just bought the name brand one to start with, you know?
Right.
So cheap isn't always cheap.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Now,
Sure.
how can people find more information about you?
I mean, my website's allthingsoverlanding.com.
Okay.
Got a YouTube channel, podcast. I mean, pretty much if you just search for All Things Overlanding, you should find me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.